say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We're throughout the world. Some faces from earlier award years I recognize already. As Florence said, I'm going to go quickly through the basic presentation. Most of the documents are online, but the best value for you is most probably the Q&A at the end, as you're working on a specific case and you might have some clarifying questions. So I start sharing the PowerPoint. If I go here, voila, here we go. So you can put your questions already in the chat box, but of course, we'd rather at the end have a oral Q&A with all of us. In the agenda, what we're trying to bring in this presentation is give you a bit background on the scope and purpose of this award scheme, what we are looking at the requirements of the submission, the registration process, what it means to be a winner, and some experience of previous years. And we have been adding some extras of points that came through previous Q&As. You will be supported throughout this process by Florence and myself for any question you might have going forward. But of course, as we know, you like to have the answers early in the process, so you don't do much of the editing in vain. What is the main purpose? So we have been working for over 10 years in looking at the impact of learning and development initiatives. So we're looking at the impact and we're looking at it from both sides, the supplier and the client. The original scope came from the one of the earlier crises, and we said, okay, then there is a cut in the spending and investment in L&D. Let's show what the positive impact of learning and development is. And we've kept that measure throughout, and probably with the past pandemic and potentially future versions of that, spending will again be under scrutiny. So we believe that focusing on impact and showing that it really matters what you do can only help to the credibility of learning and development as a sector. Partnerships between suppliers who can be very diverse, business schools, alternative providers, but also the in-house learning and development units. And the client organizations are on a very broad scope, companies, small and medium enterprises, NGOs, government agencies, any organization that does an investment in its people. The scope of the intervention is not limited. We make clusters, and that is maybe a point that I will probably repeat again throughout the presentations. We make clusters of cases, of submissions, based on the fact that we want to manage the volume of work for the jury members. So we commit to jury members that they will not be needing to read more than 10 cases. So we will be splitting the submissions into clusters of between 5 and 10 cases. Typical cluster names in the past have been executive or leadership development, which is about the incumbent leaders. There have been talent development, which is about the future leaders. There has been professional development, which is about the professional pipeline. And we have OD, which are more cultural and organizational change projects. You've seen that in the past we had several fifth clusters, and based on the number of submissions, we might have 5 or 6 clusters or more this year. Well, we typically end up with something like 30-35 submissions. So with 4 to 5 clusters, we are able to cover the scope, but it's just also to show you how wide the submissions can be with respect to scope. We select the award-winning cases based on how they document the challenge, how effective their commitment was with their partner, and based on that issue and problem statement, what the ultimate impact was related to that. So is there any congruence between those? And of course, was there the appropriate L&D initiative? What was done? That are the 4 areas where we're looking at. What we learned from the past and give us advice, when you start a submission, it's important to see and establish the authorship between the supplying side and the client or receiving side in the partnership. And these can be multiple. You can have multiple providers, and you may have multiple clients or client organizations at the receiving end, but it's typical that it is multiple suppliers. Who is going to do what? There is a brief and submission guidelines published. They are a rather stable document. There is a 4,000 words a word count. We advise to use a report writing style, which also manages your word count, and be very rigorous on your appendices. You can throw a lot of information at the jury, but the more, the less selective you are, the more they can get lost in your submission. And also, there is no guarantee that the jury will read your appendices. It's only the core document that matters. And yeah, you have until March 15th, so a time plan can be of help. Again, going back to the 4 areas, as we said, the issue at hand and the shown impact on that issue are the 2 major categories for scoring for the jury. So we will go for 30% on the challenge and 30% on the impact. Your commitment, which kind of specifies which part of the challenge you're addressing, what the problem statement is, and can narrow down, of course, where we're looking for the impact, is 15%. And then the initiative and the description of it is another 15%. You don't need to repeat elements in once. If you use these chapters, which we advise, which helps the jury, you don't need to repeat information in each of these chapters. So they will not be read separately. They will be read as one document. And we also advise to give some of the dynamics of the journey and not just a polished hooray statement from the end result. Again, when you look at the document, think about the reader, think about confidentiality and copyright issues that you might have, and you can consider a bibliography. We will, if you're an award winner, come back to you about in what format your submission will be published. So you can put elements in the submission that you are ready to share with the jury. The jury has a ethics of non-disclosure, so you can share and you can take those data or examples out before we publish. Of course, if the case still makes sense. If it just drills down the case to something which doesn't make sense anymore, but you understand, I think, the idea. The executive summary, on the contrary, which is the first page, should give a good idea about the case, not just an introduction. Should kind of cover the entire case in a one-page format, which is publishable as is, which means the day you get the award announced, this page will be published on, well, a few days later, but will be published on the website. So we will not get back to you about publishing the executive summary. Make it meaningful. We sometimes see that the executive summary becomes very high level introduction to the case. Make it still reflecting the case, please. 4,000 words. You see what we will not count and what we will count, but I think that's not a miracle. We haven't, let me go back. I think we haven't taken cases or not admitted cases based on formalities, but don't abuse. So there is it is a bit of slack, but the jury members can get very annoyed if they get the impression you're playing too much around the rules. So just to say, we're not going to look at commas and exclamation marks. Images and videos are not compulsory, but they can bring life to your presentation. Some testimonials, any things that were brought at the start of the initiative, that always helps. Any explanation that was given to participants or the context, that always helps. But don't overload the case. It's not the packaging, although the packaging in the last 10 years is always getting better. But it's not the packaging that will make you win, it's the evidence that will make you win. It's going to be on the facts. So what we also say, you should put your videos in the PDF. Don't bring them as a separate file. And of course, there you get the limit of the size of your PDF. If you overload it, then you will feel the problem on your own computer already before you send it or submit it. We want, yes, I am going to be very strict, we want to see your full paper and appendices online in PDF format before the date. There's no need to specify the category. As I said, we're using cluster names and we're bringing you together with other cases. We think your case is best to shine and to compete. The declaration of authorship with all signatures can be in a separate email. We will not admit, and that we have done in the past, we will not admit the case to the jury if we don't get this declaration of authorship, because the partnership is not evidenced or supported with a document. Once you're a winner, we will invite you to share your case as a gold and a silver winner in the award ceremony and presentation of the cases during the Executive Development Conference in October in Warwick in the UK. We are looking into hybrid formats for these presentations, I can already say, because we have a very wide variety of applicants throughout the globe and we don't know who is going to be able to travel. We hope all of you are able to travel and to join. And at the very other end, it could well be that we need to go back to online, but that, as you know, is something from your own experience, is something we need to decide later on in the process. We are building a program now at Warwick in October. You will get articles. We will make an edited version of your case together with you for the Global Focus special issue. You can read those issues, and probably already did, on the website or from the previous years on the website of EFMD. And there you can find some examples. Know that these edited versions are not the submitted versions. We will bring all the winners together to see how we can cooperate on spreading the news through press and social media and more. As I already said, you can find information on the award scheme on the EiP website, but you can also find all the cases as published and submitted on that same website. To give an example, Florence made a circle here at the bottom right of the screen. You see an executive summary of a case. You see the full case as submitted. You can see the Global Focus article, which is an edited version of the case. And you can see a Pecha Kucha video, which is introducing the case, which is a 7-minute video. Some have not agreed on publishing, others have. So you will find this is a full case where everything is available, and we hope to have as much material as possible available to share after this round 2. The feedback from participants is certainly, well, you systemize your knowledge, you formalize it, and you make it able to share beyond the partners, which is an advantage within the client organization, because it can show the material to a wider audience which was not involved, and certainly client organizations can show the case in a formalized way to other potential clients. This helps, and as I said, it increases the credibility of learning and development as a whole, as a sector. Some extras, which are reminders to check, did I mention this already or not? The first one is the jury composition. We have a mixed jury. We make sure that in any jury group, so each jury group does one cluster. In each jury group, we will have at least one client, at least one alternative provider, and at least one business school. We make that mix complete, and we will be making sure that, of course, nobody who has a case in the given cluster will be a jury in that given cluster. So we make sure there is no overlap. I think that's obvious. The jury will go through the process, and every applicant will get feedback. Myself, with more of a corporate background, will be heading all these juries and will have the task of editing all these feedbacks. So this can take a bit of work depending on the number of submissions that are coming in. You're not required to be an EFMD member to admit to, but we will ask a small handling fee for those who have no EFMD member in their partnership. A key question on which we had to take out a number of cases last year, we don't allow resubmission of a case study. So you get feedback and then you think, I will make my next version better, so I try again. We don't do that for several reasons. First of all, it would just inflate the number of cases we get. Second, we have no constant jury cluster. So we work with interobjectivity, which means we have different views, people decide and discuss together, but you can have a different jury next year on the same case, and you can get totally different feedbacks if you don't get the award. And that's only increasing to the debate, the number of mails, the frustrations. We're not going to do that. So we're kind of protecting the process. Make sure your case is good enough to submit. And if it's not good enough, wait a year. But don't say, I will try and use the feedback to make it better. And what do we call the same case? That is, if it's the same partners on the same challenge. Yeah, the program can be different. And last year was a difficult year on that because people said we moved the program completely online, so it's a different program. It was the same challenge with the same client and the same provider. We didn't go there. Okay. The rest you can find on the EiP web pages. Brief, submission guidelines, frequently asked questions, and your link for the online submission. Florence, who's having for this purpose already 2 email addresses. We now have the eip@efmdglobal.org. You can call her, you can email her. We will set up any contact required to help you out of your dilemmas so that your case can be submitted by the 15th of March. And I look already forward to reading all your cases, which is always a delight for me and, I must say, for the jury members. Open for questions. The PowerPoint will be shared. Yes, indeed. And the video also.
I do have a question.
Yeah,
I don't know if
ahead.
I can talk. So I am from Porto Business School from Portugal. And I would like to understand better because I'm having some trouble understanding the difference between the challenge and the commitment. Because I think that in our case, the challenge already reflects the commitment. So if you could talk a little bit about this and make a better distinction about these two topics, I would appreciate it, please.
Okay. Well, I already started putting some elements in the presentation on that. You can see that the challenge is the wider issue you're addressing with the program, but it's clear that the program is not the only element that is addressing that issue. Yeah, these are not standalone things. So a company can have a wider issue. Some you can read. A wider challenge you can read in the cases last year. I don't know if anybody is on this call, but if you look at the car manufacturers, they have the challenge of moving into electric mobility, yeah, in electrical vehicles. So there's a wider challenge which has trickle down effects on competencies, organization, culture, and how do you do this? Take this as an example. Now, of course, that's a context element, which is very important. Then you have the commitment, which is kind of the contracting stage. What did the provider commit to do? And what is important, we're always looking at what did the provider commit to accomplish. It's not deliver a program, but where would we see the impact of this intervention? What is kind of going to be the result? So if you look at the impact, we will be looking at what was the challenge addressed in a wider issue statement, but also what was the problem statement that was in this specific case at hand. What was contracted? Yeah. And then you can see in impact, is there any evidence that there is a solution on the problem statement and that it moved the needle on the wider challenge, of course. Yeah. Does this help?
Okay. Yes, yes. Thank you very much.
Linda has Linda is on my top left. So Linda, you're the first one on my screen. Go ahead.
Hi, Jan, and thanks for the presentation. So as you know, we put a bid in 2020 with a particular client. And Florence, I think you've already answered this in my email, but I just want to double check before we do the work. We're using the same client, but a completely different part of the business and a completely different program. Is that okay?
That's perfect. We of course need to read the submission, but that is no problem.
Okay, thank you.
And just to add on the previous, it can even be on the same wider challenge, but a different problem statement at a different department and with a different program. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Now Maria is getting on my top left. So, and I see the picture of Skolkovo, so I suspect you're from there. Go ahead.
Yes, that's right. Hi from Moscow. It's very snowy here and cold, but very, very beautiful. We had terrible snowfalls the past 2 days. So actually, I've got two questions. One is, we all know that sustainability is one of the most, important issues right now. Are you going to introduce a new cluster on sustainability?
Okay, I answer the first question and come back to for the second. Okay.
Okay, and the second is, are there any limitations on the number of cases? I mean, so how many cases we can submit? Or in other words, what is your recommendation number of cases? Because usually we submit 2 cases, but this year too many clients want to share their experience, and we are going to prepare 3 cases, but I'm not sure that this is a good way to do that. What is your recommendation? Okay. I understand that this is not a very proper question, but still.
No, it happens. We had the question before, so I have no problem in answering. So the first one, will we have a cluster on sustainability? I don't know yet. with the drive what's going on, it is very likely. But it just depends on the basket of cases we're getting. We will be splitting similar cases into clusters, and that cluster can be created totally different. For instance, we had a year where we had 2 or 3 cases about leadership programs in Africa. And they were completely standing out with respect to the others, and we almost made it a cluster, but we didn't have 5. So we didn't make it a cluster. So the cluster is kind of similar cases are put together, and then we give it a label, and we reuse labels from the past. So that's, I cannot say in advance. It depends on what we're getting on our desk. That's the first. The second, how many cases you can submit, that's unlimited. We're not scrutinizing for that. There's 2 elements that can play in against you. The first one is, if you think that your cases are always the top best of everything that's there, then you're competing with yourself. So that's the only one. But those organizations that brought multiple cases, there was a variance in quality, and they never competed with each other. And I think the most we had was 4 or 5 from one organization. So that and the second is, of course, if you bring 5 cases and they happen to be in different clusters, which we don't manage, they can be in the same cluster. But imagine you're in the different clusters, and we have 5 clusters, and you have 1 in each. We can't have a Skolkovo jury member. Yeah, but
Thank you so much.
Is something you need to discuss with your colleagues.
Yeah, okay, thank you. A difficult choice. Thank you.
No, but we haven't had any problems with that in the past. So
thank you.
Next hand on my screen is Drazen. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jan, for your time and the presentation. Much appreciated. And Drazen from IMD Lausanne. Not as probably snowy as in Moscow, but we still have some cold and snow. So I have just perhaps a question around the categories and just a clarification. You mentioned there the 4 categories there and potentially expanding to bigger bucket in terms of the topics. And if I'm not mistaken, you said there were 34 submissions last year, right?
30, 35.
35.
We were above 35, I believe.
So basically it means, and each category is 5 cases, right? So basically
no. Sorry, I just stop here. We're not saying it's 5 cases. It's a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 10.
Got it.
That's because we want to commit to jury members that they don't need to take too much time in reading the cases.
Got it. Thank you. And then just the last question then for categories. Is there a jury basically that selects to which category they go? What is that process there? I'm not quite clear on that process.
First, this is a puzzle we make with a good spreadsheet and some good Excel skills. We want to spread the expertise, so the background of the jury members, and we don't want jury members in a category where there is a case of their own organization or they're affiliated. So we also ask jury members if they feel that through past experience or current relationships that it's not appropriate to be in a given category because they know one of the applicants too well. Yeah. You will never know who was your jury member. That's something we commit to the juries. It's always Florence and me that will be communicating, and the feedback will come through me. And there's no way that we will give access or publish. We will publish all the jury members, but not to which category they were. Yeah, that is a point. There are people saying, you have put me last year in a given category, can you put me in another category? Until now, if that is feasible and not too much of a challenge, we do that. But we haven't done this more than 5 times in the past. Yeah, we've even convinced people to stay in the category we had put them. and they were glad at the end for reading the cases. So it's we don't look at background, we don't look at country, language, affiliation, whatever. We only look at what kind of provider or what kind of client were they, can we make a mix, and do we make sure they're not in a conflict of interest situation.
Got it. And I think just the last question, then jury as a conflict of interest for the jury. If, obviously, you said when the case is presented before it's, let's say if it is a winner case, and before it's presented, we are adapting the information, so not the actual facts go out in the public.
Yeah.
But does it mean also that the competitors are reading the case, or how that works?
That can be the case.
That can be the case.
I cannot. Well, at least if you look for business schools, they're all competitors.
That's different.
Yeah.
I'm more looking from the expert side.
Yeah, we will also, well, let's give an example. We will split all the UK-based business schools across the clusters as jury members. Yeah, so we're not going to put them all together. On the other hand, we've learned in the past, as much as you fear of a given jury members to be against you, that person can be in favor of your case. We had cases where somebody of the country was available who could explain what the challenge really was in that country with that given challenge. And I think it was about sustainability reporting. And that the case came to life by some background information on a given context that was coming from a jury member, and not about the company or the supplier, but about the context in a given part of the world. So imagine you have, I take now an example, you have a Russian case with Skolkovo, and we have a Russian jury member from another organization. It could well be that the jury member can, in the debate, mention, look, the way they put this example, take care that you understand what the context is. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jan.
I just want to correct Jan. Last year we had actually 50 cases, which was a much higher result than the previous year, where we were around 40. But so it's very hard to announce any figure for this year, but we can have about 40, about 50.
I forgot the word, Florence. That's a good point.
So the jury had quite a lot to read.
Okay, Sushani is now on my left top screen with a hand up. So Sushani, you have the floor.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, so I'm from Dell Technologies India. So this is the first time we're looking to apply for the award. So I have one basic question. So does this award also apply to companies who have learning and development programs for their employees?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So here, so the provider and the client will be the company and employees, and that's okay?
Yes. But then it's very important you explain the commitment.
Right.
What the role of one side versus the other was.
Yeah, so to complement the authorship, documents needs to be signed by two part of the company. So we need to see a provider, although it's an internal provider within the company, and the client being a business unit or whatever it can be. So it's important, and this needs to be confirmed on the declaration of authorship.
Yeah.
Okay.
And especially take care that your the hierarchical line of your providing element is not the same as the hierarchical line of the client element, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, got it. Thank you so much.
And in the past, we had several submissions. So although you might not see them on the website, every year we do have submission coming from a client, internal submission, if we can call it.
And also award winners, so you can see quite a number of those.
Yeah, you can find them. Yeah.
Good, you reminded me of the 50, Florence. I had forgotten.
Let's see this year.
Okay, next hand to me is Christine on the top left. Go ahead.
Right, good day to all of you from EDEC in France. I'm have a question concerning the impact, the section on impact. How much time do you need to leave between the end of your training program and the evaluation of impact in a professional environment? How much, how much time do you need to leave? Do you need a year? Do you need more than a year? What is the opinion of EFMD on that?
Okay, thanks for the question, because I will need to bring some other elements into the scope on impact. But to just directly answer your question is, your program can still be running and not finished, and you can show impact. The question is, what is the impact? And for impact, I look always at the multi-layered model. The first impact you see is the impact on the individual. The second layer of impact in that kind of multi-layer is what that individual brings about in the department, what the effect was through the program and the individual on the processes in department, the way of working, and so on. And then you go beyond the organization, you look at wider processes in the business. You can have impact on product portfolio, you can have impact on client portfolio, and this can have an impact on what the business is looking like, what it is perceived, how it is positioned, or even what the annual results are, for instance. Now you see that some of these elements can take quite a while to dribble down or grow up into that tree of impact, but some might be instant on all those levels. So it's more about, can you show impact beyond the individual participant and how deep it goes into your business or into your organization. But to give an example, I think from the top of my head, I go back to the automobile examples. I think some of those programs were still running, but could already show impact because of the pervasiveness of the challenge they were having.
Right, thank you very much.
All of a sudden, Florence comes by top left view, so there are no hands for the moment. Any further questions? Yes, Eileen.
Yes, so to introduce myself, I'm a freelance writer in the UK, and I've been working with INSEAD on submissions, mainly from Europe and Asia campus. I just wondered if you could give me some of your favourite examples of impact measurement in the past, because this is a recurring issue for us every year, is how do we show it? We know it's there, but what's the best measure? Yeah,
well, that's a challenge from the top of my head. I think if you look at the trends presentation that I did last year in the Executive Development Conference, there was a part of that presentation focusing on what type of impact indicators and layers were used. So that could be, but there are no specific examples. There are some surprising examples, which I can, off the top of my head. There were organizations that were going to change a part of their culture, and they created or they used a cultural index measurement or a cultural index. So these things don't need to be millions of dollars or euros. It can always be, you set your goal. Sometimes when I read cases, I read the challenge without looking at the impact, because I need to cluster them at the first stage. And I read that, and then I'm kind of wondering, how will they ever show that they had an impact on this? And then you read the impact part and you say, this is very well done. So sometimes it's a surprise, but kind of ask yourself the question, if you read the impact, that I understand that sometimes it's written the reverse. Okay, let's not be very naive, but if you read the impact and the commitment part, and you ask yourself, how will they ever prove that they really had that impact? So they have an intention, they create an expectation, and then at the end, well, show me, not show me the money, but show me the impact. Yeah. Hope this helps. I first of all, I don't have a set of amazing impact indicators in the top of my head. And second, I don't think it would be fair, because sometimes cases, and I need to repeat that, sometimes cases can look very dull and very standard and old-fashioned, but they bring the impact. And I think that's what we're here about. It's not about the shiny, sparkling new thing. It's about, does it really deliver? Yeah. Any further questions? No? Okay, then we can...
I would just like to add, then, if you can show the next slide, Jan.
Yeah,
I think there is... if any of you at a certain moment is sure of submitting a case, I would always like to know it, because I'm keeping a kind of list, and this will enable me to keep connected with those who have expressed interest and confirmed that they will be submitting. So this is an element that I do appreciate, knowing once you have made your decision. That's the first point. Another point, don't be surprised that on the EiP website, we don't have the submit button yet to submit online. It will come, but I'm pretty sure that nobody's ready for submitting the case. So it will get there. And this is why when I have the list of those who intend to submit, you get also a kind of mail with some last elements reminding about tips, and amongst these with the link to submit the case. So in case you get lost, don't worry, I keep in touch with those who have been expressing their interest and confirming they wanted to submit. So just for the information, you know that we have 2 upcoming info sessions, which will be exactly the same as here. But however, if you want to have colleagues joining, or the client or a provider, they can still join, and we will be sharing the PowerPoint and the recording. But if they have specific questions, they can for sure join this session. And otherwise, is there anybody with an additional question? It's just still the moment before we close. No, nobody. So I allow myself to open a little poll just for me to have some feedback from your end. And meanwhile, yeah, thanks a lot for having joined. It was great to see your faces, to hear your voice, and have your very great question. Always very interesting to hear and to share. Sometimes challenging question, but really nice to have you all here. Let's all keep in touch, and good luck for your submission for those who have it in mind.
And we look forward to your submission, and we will help you with any question you have.